I can imagine he must have said, you guys look pretty happy about this. I got rid of James, and what else can I do to please you? He says, well, there's lots of Christians. Well, he probably said, well, which one would you like me to get rid of if you had to choose one? And everybody in the little meeting there probably said, who? Peter. Now, Peter, if you're going to get rid of one of them, get rid of that guy, Peter. He's the guy you want to get rid of. And so in verse 4 it says, we're in Acts 12, and when he had apprehended him, he put him, Peter, in prison and delivered him to 4 quaternions of soldiers to keep him. Now, you can understand why they had the extra security. Instead of just putting him in a regular jail, they put him in a jail with a special group of soldiers to take care of him. 4 quaternions. Now, quattro, where does that word come from? It's like 4, isn't it? So 4 quaternions would be how many? 16. Kids, what's 4 times 4? 16? Good. 4 times 4, we were doing our times tables, some of the younger ones in school. So here we have a situation where he's in a jail. He has 16 soldiers guarding him. And let me try to sort of explain his cell. It was hewn out of solid rock, apparently. It had three doors to get into it. And in the middle, there was no light, no nothing. It was just a sort of hewn out of solid rock. And inside, Peter is chained with one guard on one hand and one guard on the other hand. And then at the first door, there would be a guard on the inside and a guard on the outside. The next door would be a guard on the inside, guard on the outside. The last door would have the same thing, 2 guards. That would be 8 soldiers, probably taking 2 shifts. And they're not about to let Peter get out this time. See, they know about Peter's reputation as an escape artist. He's the Houdini of the Bible, basically. And so they are commissioned to see that he stays there. And if he gets out, it's their life. So you can imagine how intense they must be as far as watching Peter. And there's no sleeping on the job here. They know Peter's gotten away, at least on 2 occasions. They put Peter in jail, and what Peter does, the angel comes and lets him out of jail and says, go back to the temple and start preaching. So Peter gets out, goes and starts preaching, and they go to get him in jail, and he's not there, and so they go, where is he? Well, he's not hiding, is he? He's out there preaching. Oh. So they get him again, and it happens again. And he gets out again, and now they realize they better watch him a little closer. So here they are watching him a little bit closer. And the jail is, I would say, this is the Alcatraz of Jerusalem. How many of you know what Alcatraz, the island of Alcatraz is, out in San Francisco? Have anybody been there and toured the island? It's quite interesting, yeah. Finally, somebody escaped from Alcatraz, I guess, and they shut it down. Because it was supposed to be unescapable, but somebody got out of there. Acts 12, verse 5, it says, Peter, therefore, was kept in prison, but, is anybody there with me? But what was made without ceasing here? Constant prayer. Prayer was made without ceasing of the church unto God for him. This is a model for our church. Our churches should be praying for people in prison. Prison can be likened unto sin, can it? You know anybody in prison? Well, pray for them. And so this church is organized well. This church is a healthy church. There are some problems with some churches that when it comes to prayer and being organized and being helpful and praying for people and really supporting each other. I have a friend who is a pastor, and he said at one of his board meetings that he had a gun pulled on him at a board meeting. I mean, I've heard of some arguments in church board meetings before about whatever, but this time he says I couldn't believe it. I've seen arguments, and I've seen some loud voices, maybe some disagreements, but this is the first time that this has ever happened to me. Somebody pulled a gun on him. Somebody was upset, he said. This guy was upset because he wasn't nominated for a certain position, and we were just having nominating committee, weren't we? And I was an alternate on there, and I was in there. We were all very pleasant, and everybody was pretty nice and well behaved in there, and went well. A lot of prayer was made. But this fella, he was upset, and it was so upset he actually pulled a gun out and showed it to the pastor, and didn't use it in a threatening way, but he did pull it out, he said, and he was very upset, and I was very nervous, and so, but Jesus says, whoever desires to be first, the same should be last. Yeah, a lot of prayer. Prayer without ceasing. What's the shortest verse in the Bible? Remember Jesus wept? The second shortest verse, actually the second series of short verses in 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 17 through I think verse 21. It has these little series of short little proverbs, and one of them says, pray without ceasing, and it says, prove all things, do this, do that, pray without ceasing. And so you see that the church here is praying without ceasing. Verse 6. It says here now, when Herod would have brought him forth, the same night Peter was nervously pacing back and forth, worried because he was on death row. What's that word there? Sleeping. Is everybody seeing this in the Bible? Now this is the key point of this sermon. We're already to the very apex of the sermon here. This is the most important point. It says that night, this is death row for Peter. The next day he's going to be dragged out of there and executed. But it says Peter was sleeping. And he's probably the only one there that's getting any sleep. He's sleeping between two soldiers. Now, do you think the soldiers are sleeping? I can picture what they're doing. They're realizing this is the escape artist fella is going to get out of here. We're almost sure he's going to at least try. And we're going to watch it, though. So when he does try it, or whatever the tricks he uses, we're going to be watching him. And they're watching closely. And he just falls asleep. And they're probably going, what? Well, this will be easy. We'll just watch a sleeping guy. I wonder if he's faking it. Maybe they thought he was faking it, so they probably, jostled him a little bit. But here he is, bound with two chains, and the keepers before the door and in the prison. Peter's not worried here, is he? Why? Peter has someone to worry for him, doesn't he? I heard about a fellow who was in a church one time, and he was a rich fella, sort of a millionaire kind of guy, and he was the economy went bad, sort of like now, and he was losing all his money. His stocks were going bad, his investments were going bad, and his money was going, and he was worried, and he was making everybody uncomfortable, and he was nervous. One day he came to church, and they noticed he had stopped being worried. He came and he was happy, a smile and a little song on his heart. He was a happy guy, and they asked him, well, what happened? You were so nervous. And he says, yeah, I'm doing good. He says, what, your investments are doing good now? He says, no, they're still going down the toilet. And they said, well, what's happened? Well, I just hired somebody to worry for me. I hired a new guy, and his job was to worry for me. And they said, well, how much do you have to pay him? Well, he gets 6 figures. He gets a 6-figure salary. And they go, well, how are you going to pay him if your money's going out? You don't have any money to pay him. He says, well, that's his first worry. That's the first thing he's got to worry about, his own salary. So here you see Peter has hired somebody to worry for him, in a sense, hasn't he? Now, isn't that the way a Christian should live? We have, as Christians, someone we have hired to worry for us. And we don't have to worry. In fact, somebody want to look up a scripture for me? Isaiah 26 and verse 3. I want to hear, if somebody would like to look that up, we can have a little audience participation. Isaiah 26 and verse 3. Someone want to read that? Judy has that. Okay. I like that, don't you? Did you hear that? Thou will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusteth in thee. Now, most prisoners, when they're on death row, are nervous, especially the night before, and they're still swearing up and down they didn't do it, and they're sweating, and they're just terrible. It's this agony knowing you're going to be beheaded or killed or executed or firing squad or whatever it is the very next day. But Peter is not doing this. It's the very opposite of this. He has hired someone to worry for him, and he's able to sleep on death row. Amazing. Acts 12, verse 7. It says, and behold, the angel of the Lord came unto him, and a light shined in the prison, and he smote Peter. Now, Peter is out. He's so comfortable, he has to be smote. Now, smote sometimes can be a pretty tough word. Smote, smite. That sometimes can be fatal, especially if an angel does it. And here, it says the angel had to jostle Peter enough to wake him up. He's out. He says, I'm not worried about this.